This is our first Sunday in Advent this year. Advent is a word that means God coming into the world. And the birth of Jesus Christ is the literal birth of God, made man, come down here to live and walk amongst us. It's a very important holiday for us, not just as Americans, but here in Grapevine, Texas. This is the Christmas capital of Texas. Dare say maybe even the world. Because maybe if you're not from here, you don't know, but you can walk up and down Main Street, just not very far from here, and it looks like Christmas just threw up everywhere. And it's that way every single year. Celebrating Christmas is just an important part of our DNA around here. And you know, I'm not from Grapevine, and so when I point that out to people, they get a little bit defensive. They're like, "What's wrong with that? What's wrong with celebrating Christmas?" Nothing. It's amazing. It's so much fun. But it's also a little sad because this year things are different. I don't know about you, but Thanksgiving for us was not what we had planned. And as we're all looking towards Christmas, it seems like more of the same. I'll confess, I even struggled with whether or not I would mention the fact that we're still in a pandemic and that this coronavirus situation here in our little corner of the world seems to be as worse as it has been since the beginning. I struggled because I, probably like you, am getting a little bit tired of talking about it, of hearing about it, of it being something that has to be on my mind every day when I wake up, and every time I go out somewhere, I have to wear one of these. And in fact, the very few people who are even allowed in the room with me right now are covered up as if we're in an ER or something. It's getting old. It's making it difficult to have a positive thought, to be excited about what we're doing. It's really hard to get in the Christmas spirit when I don't even think I'll be able to see my family. But we have to really look at the story. We have to remember what it is that we are celebrating, to see that we have something to be very, very joyful about. But let's go into the story that we've read this morning, the story that kicks off Christmas. And there's even a pretty nativity set already set up behind me that includes the mother of Jesus, Mary. And it's easy to think of that story as being so exciting and wonderful that she is told by an angel that she is going to have the Messiah as her child. What a wonderful thing that is. But we've got to remember, and what we've been working on here as we've walked through this Jesus project, where we've really immersed ourselves in the story of Jesus, if we look at it in the cold light of day, this doesn't seem like something to celebrate. This seems terrifying. This poor little girl is what she was, in a part of the world that was under Roman occupation, impoverished, war-torn, and here, even in that society, the lowest of the low is someone who is being told directly by God, you're going to have a child in scandal, your family might disown you, this is going to be really hard to explain. This is going to be a difficult journey. And her response is, despite that, despite all those circumstances, is joyful. The passage that Miriam read today, it leads up to even, and includes, Mary goes to see her cousin Elizabeth, who is older and has been without child, and she is going to have a child. And they're both celebrating and joyful. But if you're honest and you think about how people must have witnessed that in their time, somebody would have said, what are they so happy about? What do they have to celebrate? Life's not going to get any better for them. But yet, despite this, despite what was going on in the world, God coming to us is worth celebrating. We've seen and we've already been discussing, and we're going to continue to uncover, especially this month, that God coming and walking among us is something to celebrate despite whatever else is happening. And there's no Roman occupation that could stop that. Jesus brought joy and celebration to people who were lost. Jesus brings joy and celebration to you and to me. Even though I know sometimes that can be really hard to remember. I was thinking about that this week as we're getting ready to kick off Advent. This long project, this Jesus project, has had a lot of hands on it, a lot of different people who have been a part of this. But one in particular came to mind, and he was someone whose hands can be seen all throughout the Jesus project. He was a mentor of mine and a good friend as well of Pastor Allen, who works here on our staff. His name was Dr. Jim Pledger. He looked like old retired Harry Potter. He had the glasses and everything. Goofy character, a lot of fun, one of the most brilliantly creative individuals you could ever meet in your life. But I remembered from just a couple years ago, he called me, and I was in the airport getting ready to go on one of our exciting mission trips to Costa Rica. I was sitting there, and I'll never forget. I bet I could go there today, and I could find the exact seat where he called me, and he said, "Hey, I've got some news. I've been diagnosed with cancer." And that news hit me like a ton of bricks. He told me what kind, what stage it was. The prognosis was not good. And I began to cry right there in front of this whole mission team. I had to get up and try to scuttle away. And what he tells me was not false. He wasn't trying to pretend. He admitted this is scary and hard. But you know what he told me? He said, "I know there's joy in this. I know there's good. I'm going to find it." He had already started contacting other people who had suffered from this type of cancer. He had already tried to find people who had done work on how to be a joyful presence in the lives of people who are helping you along your journey. He had done so much work to try to be a light for positive and good. And he just said, God is present in this. This is going to be a journey. I'm going to learn a lot. And this is all going to be for God's glory. I think about that attitude of facing something scary, terrifying, something that would result in death. And still remembering that God is with us. We have something to celebrate. Whether you consider yourself a part of this church or you just happen to find us on YouTube and you've made it this far through the video, we are people who look to God for answers. And the answer that God has for us is there is joy here. There is hope here that we can celebrate. We don't have to pretend like the world isn't crazy, but we can celebrate this joy. And we need to. We need to for ourselves. We need to for our families who are going through this with us. And we certainly need to show that we've got joy despite difficult circumstances to a world that is hurting and suffering. And this month, throughout this season of Advent, as we're approaching Christmas, we're going to keep talking about how to celebrate, how to find joy, how to acknowledge that the work that God did in this world, the work that God is still doing here, it couldn't be stopped by Rome. It's not stopped by this pandemic. It's not stopped by any other force. God's good shines through. Let's celebrate together. We're going to come back in a minute and have a conversation, but I want you to go ahead and be thinking about how can we do this? How can we celebrate? And if you, my friend, if you struggle with that question, if you don't have an answer for that, email us, call us. Let's be in conversation together. I want to hear from you. I want to pray with you. I want to talk about this. Let's do this together. We'll be right back.